Would the United States Postal Service make 84-year-old Flossie Ellison walk through a field, over two busy railroad tracks, through another field to a nearby neighbor's house just to pick up her mail? Would they do that? Yes, they would. Flossie told me she's been doing it for 17 years and trying to get mail service at her door for 10 years.
And I have tried 10 years to get her over here. Or maybe longer than that. No, you know what they say? They said it was a route. It's supposed to be routed like a rural route in the country. And they just only routed it down here somewhere. And I said, well, my goodness, I'm in the city limits. Now, I talked to this guy over in Village, the main post office, and he was no way.
Flossie is a charming 84-year-old woman with a good sense of humor, but hiking over the tracks for her mail is beginning to get to her.
It's on their porch, my mailbox. I bought a brand new one, put that there, a nice-looking one. And it has been on their house for, so I've been over there for 17 years.
17 years you've been walking over there to get your mail.
And she said today, well, I'll bring it to you when I get off from work. I said, oh, I don't want you to do that. It's they do too much for me. And I've always had to be my own business, you know, and everything. It gets you down when you can't do nothing.
Yeah. Now, after Flossie climbs up and down over a couple of hills with railroad tracks on it, plows through a couple of wet fields, she comes over here to busy Western Avenue, gets her mail at a neighbor's house. So we went to the post office to find out what they could do about it. Flossie lives on 900 Northwest 84th in the Britain area. It's in the Oklahoma City limits, as she says, but some say it's a forgotten area. The post office says it's an unimproved area.
The rule says that they're supposed to have paving and curb streets, things like this for city delivery, and she doesn't have that right there in that particular area. What we've done to her is told her that she can put a box up a block and a half east of her house right on Classen Boulevard that will give her access to mail delivery. And we've got a man that comes right down the Classen area right there that'll be able to give her her mail. And we've talked it over with her, and she seems very pleased with it.
So, while the trains continue to roar past her house, Flossie won't have to worry about that anymore. Oh, she'll still have to walk a couple of blocks to get her mail, but she thinks it's an easier path.
What I mean, I get out of breath. If I had the breath, I could run over there. I've been running. I can't get on the railroad track anymore. I'm not young enough.
Part of the job of a fireman is dealing with the news media. The city fire marshal is in charge of investigating for arson as well as inspecting for fire safety. And many times a fire marshal is tackled by news reporters wanting to know what caused a fire. Was it arson? Was it carelessness? Why did the firemen do this? Why did they do that? So naturally, the department wants a fire marshal that can satisfactorily field all those reporter questions, and that was part of the testing procedure in selecting a new city fire marshal. Major John Parasick of the Fire Training Center and Phil Cooksey, Department Public Relations, contacted In Your Corner for help. They wanted me to simulate an interview situation with each of the 6 candidates seeking the job of fire marshal. A letter complaining about fire hazards at a make-believe apartment complex was drawn up as if it were a letter written to In Your Corner. Each fire marshal candidate was given 10 minutes to study it, and then I interviewed the candidate asking questions about the complaints. In Your Corner received some letters of complaints about this particular apartment complex. I'd like to ask you some questions about it. There are a lot of these older buildings in town being torched nowadays. Was there any evidence of arson in this case, and do you think there'll be any arrests?
This particular building, there was a fire that was set earlier. Yes, there was. And I anticipate that our investigators will follow through on this particular one.
The three assessors judged the candidates on their ability to answer the questions in a clear, concise, and friendly manner. This, of course, was just a small part of the candidates' testing. Many things entered into the selection, which resulted in Gary Curtis being named Oklahoma City Fire Marshal. Gary's been with the department since 1966 and has served as the Assistant Fire Marshal.
Yes, those complaints were referred to our inspectors who...
Jana West is an account executive at the Skirvin Plaza Hotel. She parks her brand new $19,000 Corvette in a public parking lot next to the Skirvin. One evening when she went to her car, she witnessed an accident.
I was off work and I walked out the back door and into the parking garage, and I heard skid marks and a loud crash, and a car was driving off, and I looked, and right when he drove off, it cleared my view for what had happened to the side of my car.
The collision left several cracks in the fiberglass body, which could be very expensive to repair. Well, Jana had it all wrapped up. She saw the driver hit her car, and she got his license number as he drove from the scene, a hit and run. But she was quite surprised when she turned it into the police.
I came to the front desk, immediately telephoned the police, and was told that I could not have an accident report because it was on private property where the accident occurred.
But this was a parking lot.
It was a public parking garage where people park that work in the downtown vicinity.
As you might guess, insurance on a $19,000 fiberglass Corvette is quite high. Jana has a $500 deductible policy. That's the problem. All this hit her at a bad time. She was not financially prepared to pay the first $500 for what she thinks will be a $4,000 repair bill. Jana thought since she witnessed the accident, got the license number, and found the name of the driver through a deputy sheriff, that the police should go arrest him for a hit and run and make him pay. I took her question to police spokesman Tom Monday, who explained a hit and run with no injury is one thing on a public highway and another thing in a privately owned public parking lot.
The only provision in the city ordinance for the police to investigate an accident on private property would be in the case of an accident with injury. In other words, any accident that occurs on private property cannot be investigated by the police, as the ordinance does not cover it. That includes a hit and run, as in this case. However, the victim of a hit and run on private property may come to the police station and file a hit and run report, and we will assist them in locating the owner of that vehicle.
Because the hit and run involved no injuries and occurred in a privately owned parking lot, the police could not help Jana other than assist in finding the driver, which she had already done. So we went for help to Jana's insurance man, David Blush, who was able to help with the money problem.
Well, because of Jana's financial position here and not having the $500, we can send her vehicle to our driving claims office. They will adjust the automobile. They will give her a cash in lieu for any amount of monies, in damages over the $500 deductible. She can keep that money until, the insurance company has a chance to subrogate back to the B party involved. If they can recover their damages from this B party, well, Jana will get her $500 deductible and have enough money, to get her automobile repaired.
Well, Jana is happy that she doesn't have to lay down $500 right off the bat. That solves her immediate problem, but she's still stuck with that horrible feeling of buying a brand new luxury car and having it wrecked in just a few days. I went to visit the Lawrence Jackson family at Cedar Village. Lawrence said he was having some bad times in his life. He'd been in the Veterans Hospital for neurological treatment since the end of August. He came home for a visit in October and had an accident.
When I came home, we was all sitting here talking. and watching TV and everything. The kids was out here playing. We thought they was down here in the yard. Well, we heard them running on this, and I said, my God, that rail's off. And I come out that door. As I come out that door, I hit this lumber here, and I reached and grabbed that post right there. But that post didn't hold me.
So you went right over that railing there?
Yes, sir, I did.
Lawrence says he's been trying to get the apartment to replace the porch railing since July. Now Lawrence intends to sue. His daughter Glenda pointed out some other danger spots.
This hole right here is so wobbly. I mean, anybody could step right there and just go right through.
Glenda says the other wooden balconies are rotted out and falling apart. And she says a lower apartment seems to be the source of the cockroaches infesting her apartment. Okay, here we have an abandoned apartment with a broken window, an unlocked door, and inside 2 refrigerators with open doors, not chained up. The children could get inside very easily. To top it off, Glenda says some of the tenants can't get their mail because the complex won't replace the mailbox doors. In the midst of all the complaints, another tenant approached me with another side of the story, Terry Atchley. What's your side of the story? What do you think about the repairs, the conditions here?
I think it's the tenants' fault. They're really rough on, the stairs have been repaired a couple of times, but they all go out and, drink or whatever, and you just can't keep the stairs like that. I mean, yeah, they're old boards, but you get rough housing on them and everything else, and they're going to break down.
Terry says when they were unemployed, the management worked out a deal for them to work at the complex in exchange for rent. Does that have anything to do with why the people don't pay their rent on time, or is it just a lot of tardiness in the rent, you think?
It's just they don't pay it. Some of them are like 6 months behind, I worked in the office. She took me off the yards and made me like assistant manager for a while, and so I was there taking collections for the rent, and you don't get half the money that the apartment should.
I reached the apartment manager by phone. She explained her side of the Jacksons' complaints. She said the Jacksons got behind in their rent, and that's when the complaints started. She claims they tried to work out a deal, but after 3 months of no rent, they had to evict the Jacksons. Lawrence says his VA checks have been held up for some reason, and he can't pay his rent and can't afford to go elsewhere. Richard Wirt called me for help. He's been unemployed for several months now, out of money and being evicted because he couldn't pay his rent. Richard, an epileptic, cannot drive, so we helped him move.
It's true that an epileptic can get a driver's license, but to do so, he or she must be under a doctor's care, and although I believe that it is 2 years without a seizure, before this can happen. In my case, it's never happened.
Alan Dingus of nearby Southwestern Ford donated a brand new pickup truck and the gasoline for the task. But the problem was where to move Richard. He thought the county home would accept him until he could find work. Then he said the home turned him down and he had no place to go but the streets. I contacted Mary Thomas of the county home, who explained the home would take Richard, but he had to find a place to store his belongings and had to have an official prescription from a doctor for the drugs required for his epilepsy. Well, Vista found space for his belongings at a community center on Southwest 11th Street, where we delivered his baggage. Next, we went to Mercy Hospital, which has an epilepsy center and has been providing Richard with his medication free of charge. They wrote up his prescription and had it signed by a doctor to give to the county home and hospital, where we went next. Richard told me he's been looking for work for some time now, but his handicap has been a stumbling block.
I find that all the applications that I have heard from state that because of not having a driver's license or because of not owning a car, that they are not in any position that they can hire me. And because of the lack of transportation in the city, it just breaks down to it's very difficult. For interviews for some of the jobs, I would have to walk out to as much as 2.5 to 3 miles one way, because the transportation, the bus transportation, just doesn't run out there to South MacArthur or in south of Meridian.
Yep.
To the points where they have their main offices where you fill out the applications, and therefore to be interviewed I walked all the way out, back, and no response.
Well, we got Richard settled into the county home where he'll be able to receive medication for epilepsy and have a roof over his head until a job situation comes along that won't require a driver's license or a long walk.
To be interviewed, I walked all the way out, back, and no response.
Candy Hester of Choctaw is so angry she doesn't want to buy anything at a discount or otherwise. She wants her American Adventures membership fee returned. Her family signed up September 9th and as of today has not received their card or list of participating merchants. She was to get the information in 2 to 4 weeks. I asked her what she did get.
Nothing so far, except a hard time over the telephone.
And you decided you wanted your money back.
Mm-hmm.
And what did they tell you?
At the time I called was last week, about Wednesday or Thursday of last week, and they told me I could not come and pick up my money, that they would have to mail it to me. Well, that's been the whole problem with the whole situation, is that I haven't received any mail from them yet, as promised. I told them I didn't want to wait for their mail, that I could be waiting till doomsday for their mail, and that I'd just come down and pick it up. Well, that was impossible because they were in the process of moving their offices. And I asked them if they had made the Better Business Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce aware of their moving, and they said yes, they had. I called the Better Business Bureau. They did not know about the moving.
Candy said the salesman led her to believe supermarkets would be included in the plan. She still hadn't received a list of her merchants, so she called about that.
I asked them about who the participants were in my area, and they told me that they didn't have the particular list in the office at the time, and they could not read off any of the retailers for me.
Wait a minute.
As a matter of fact, I called back twice and gave my name once and my sister's name the second time and asked several similar questions, got different answers on every question I asked.
You mean to tell me that the main office could not tell
No.
you who the participating stores were?
In my area, no.
I was also contacted by a sales lady for American Adventures, Sue Rohrbaugh of Midwest City. She says they owe her money for commissions on selling memberships.
There's a couple other people we've been calling for the past 6 weeks, asking them, when can we get our last check? They kept saying, come back a week, come back in another week, we come another week, until one day they said, come on Monday. We came there, the doors were locked. Okay, so the next day we thought we'd come back by there again, the doors were locked again, and we started looking in the windows, everything was cleared out. We had no idea they were even moving. We didn't know where they went or anything.
Was Sue instructed to tell potential members there would be supermarkets participating?
They kept saying, there's no grocery stores on here. People are going to want them when you tell them that there's groceries. They said, we'll be getting one, Well, even if we have to pay one to take the program, we'll be getting one. But then they never did.
What did they tell you to say to the customer concerning grocery stores?
They said to tell them that there will be groceries on it. That's all they said to tell them. There'll be groceries.
By telephone, American Adventures told us where their new location was and agreed to an interview. Company President Wendell McMorrin said Sue Rohrbaugh and 3 others had been fired for misrepresenting the company.
She and some of the other people that worked in her crew was telling people that we had grocery stores on the program. We are in negotiation with grocery stores. We do not have any on the program.
Okay, just make that perfectly clear. You nor your employees ever told them to tell people that there are grocery stores on the list?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Not under any circumstances.
I asked Mr. McMorrin why Candy Hester couldn't get her money back as it stated in the contract.
It can be done. It can be done immediately. But all of our records and everything because of the move. I mean, she just called it a bad time.
Richard and Tammy C. said they hadn't eaten in 4 days, except for some cornflakes and a few biscuits. Those were gone when I arrived. The couple came here in hopes of getting corrective eye surgery for Richard at the Dean McGee Eye Institute. Richard has been blind since an accident at birth. Tammy suffers from a hyperthyroid problem and requires almost $200 a month in medicine following a radioactive iodide treatment. But everything came to a screeching halt when they had problems getting their welfare checks.
When we go down there, they tell us that we have to apply for the disability for the blind and disabled, in which we have done. And every time we go down there, they just consistently say, our computers are not working, we've lost papers, we'll start it over again, we'll give you $50 emergency food stamps at this time, we'll send you the additional amount, which never comes. And this continues gone on now for 3 months, to the point now we have no food and nothing. We can't wash our clothes, we can't take a bath, we can't do nothing.
Richard claims Tammy's hyperthyroid condition causes her body to burn up calories rapidly. She needs food, and she needed high-protein food. He said all this held him back from getting corrective nose and eye surgery.
I was in the hospital last Tuesday to have the surgery, and I had to cancel it because I just told the doctor I can't go through it right now because my wife's going to sit home and starve to death while I'm here in the hospital. I can't do it. And I had to cancel it. And so I came home.
I contacted Richard's welfare caseworker, who passed me along to the assistant administrator. Merle Hill located Richard's records and said his welfare check would be mailed out today. In the meantime, he said we could pick up another emergency food ration for the couple. However, the ration did not contain enough high-protein food Tammy needed, nor any of the necessary toilet articles. Those were donated by Kimberling's IGA grocery store and manager Mark Bruning at Northwest 50th and Chartel. Richard and Tammy were surprised at the generosity and felt they would be able to make it a few more days until the rest of their welfare check arrives, hopefully without delay this time. Ralph Weeks Toady never finished either job, and in Mrs. Lemon's case, she never received the right carpeting. Well, after airing that story, we heard from numerous people who had also hired Ralph Toady to do carpeting at one time or another. And again, in each case, Toady had taken a down payment and never finished the carpeting.
He said, the point is you don't even plan to lay our carpet, do you? Finish it. And he said, I don't know if I will or not. And anyway, they got talking about I said, well, I'll tell you what somebody ought to do. My husband said, what someone ought to do to you is just beat your head in. You know, you get by with that stuff all the time. So he said, well, I'm smarter than you are. He said, I got your $1,500, didn't I?
7 of the callers had taken Toady to small claims court, and either he didn't show up, or he claimed bankruptcy, or he made a settlement that he allegedly did not live up to. I contacted the district attorney's office. They were quite familiar with Ralph Toady's name and complaints against him. They are studying the case now to see if there is a way to clear up the matter. Ralph Weeks Toady never finished either job, and in Mrs. Lemon's case, she never received the right carpeting. Well, after airing that story, we heard from numerous people who had also hired Ralph Tody to do carpeting at one time or another. And again, in each case, Tody had taken a down payment and never finished the carpeting.
He said, the point is you don't even plan to lay our carpet, do you? Finish it. And he said, I don't know if I will or not. And anyway, they got talking about well, I said, well, I'll tell you what somebody ought to do. My husband said, what someone ought to do to you is just beat your head in. You know, you get by with that stuff all the time. So he said, well, I'm smarter than you are. He said, I got your $1,500, didn't I?
7 of the callers had taken Tody to small claims court, and either he didn't show up, or he claimed bankruptcy, or he made a settlement that he allegedly did not live up to. I contacted the district attorney's office. They were quite familiar with Ralph Tody's name and complaints against him. They are studying the case now to see if there is a way to clear up the matter.
Charlie, you said you wouldn't let them take me to jail.
They aren't going to take you to jail, Gary. They're going to take you to the hospital.
You may also recall the case of Gary Davidson, a Vietnam veteran with a drug problem. He claimed he could not get treatment from the Veterans Hospital. We took Gary back to the VA, and this time he was admitted to the drug rehabilitation program. But now he is out, so I went back to check on his progress today.
Do you feel like you're clean now of drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, I don't have any drugs or any alcohol in me whatsoever, and I'll take a blood test or urine test to prove that, except what the doctor's written me.
Gary alleged that some of the program's personnel harassed him because of publicity over his case. But when he took a tape recorder in to record some of their conversations, he said he was told there was a fine for having a tape recorder and that he had to turn it in. Now Gary is on an outpatient basis and was to report to a VA clinic today to get his detox medicine.
And I went over there, and on this piece of paper, there's no date, and he didn't tell me no time to be in there. So I go over there this morning, and they said, well, you should have been here at 9 o'clock. I said, well, what am I supposed to do, read minds? Now I have to go plumb over to the hospital, go through admissions, go through all this stuff, go to the nurse and doctor, then sent down to another place, wait on him, see him again, go down to the pharmacy, wait on the pharmacy to get my medication. And that's probably a 5-6 mile round trip walk.
Gary is on disability for a foot wound, so we drove him back to the VA today to prevent a painful 6-mile walk once again.
Now, this guy's worse off than me. It's probably not, I got a little bit of shakes, and medication helps me some. These guys, it's worse than me. I can see them, if they have to go through this problem every day, they have to go through all the stuff I had to go through today, it's easier for them to go out here on the street and get it.
Yeah.
And most of them do. I just imagine, I know a few it does. And it's a shame. It's a shame that our veterans are being treated otherwise.